Hello and welcome into the Take 10 podcast. This is Alex Rue of Big Ten Network, and today's guests are former Iowa basketball player Peter Jok and the manager of research for Big Ten Network, Harold Shelton. Let's get into it.
Take a look, listen, and enjoy. Look at here.
With the catch, the finish! Oh, my goodness! What a catch!
Oh,
Energy,
my goodness.
enthusiasm. It's picked off! Selfish! Brilliant!
He's still going! Touchdown!
All right, before we get to our first interview, Peter Jok, a quick word from our sponsor, Northwestern University's School of Professional Studies. If you've ever thought about a career in sports, check out the master's program in sports administration at Northwestern University. You can build your skill set and your network in evening or online classes. Find out more at sps.northwestern.edu/sports. Great opportunity there for anyone who wants to work in sports, maybe work at a place like Big Ten Network. Glad to have the Northwestern School of Professional Studies back on board as a sponsor for this winter and spring. All right, let's get to the interview with Peter Jok. I'm very pleased to be joined by former Iowa basketball star Peter Jok, currently playing overseas in Spain, and he's joining me from there right now. Peter, how's it going, man?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Doing all right. And obviously, present day Hawkeyes are doing really well right now, tearing it up. You had a great career. Yeah, you had a great career for Iowa as well. So, for Hawkeye fans and Big Ten fans listening, just update us on your stops since leaving Iowa City, what you've been up to. I mentioned you're in Spain now. Take us step by step if you could.
Yeah. So when I left Iowa, I joined the Phoenix organization. Played there for 2 years while I was playing the G League team, and then last year I played in France in the LBN, and then this year I'm in Spain in ACB.
So you mentioned playing in the G League here. Giving that a go, what went into the decision to look into opportunities overseas? Was it like straight financial? Was it maybe the opportunities here weren't playing out like you hoped? How did you decide to play in France and then Spain beyond that?
Yeah, first year when I went to training camp with the Phoenix Suns, I got hurt after training camp, and ended up sending me down to the G League team where I was hurt most of the year. So I didn't really get to show myself. I didn't really get to showcase anything that first year because even when I got back, we had a lot of NBA guys on the roster, so I didn't play that much. And then second year, I played more, and I felt like I showcased what I'm good at, pretty much shooting, and also played good defense. And nothing happened after the second year, so I just decided to come overseas because everybody got different paths to success. So I decided to come over here and see what's up. If they want you on the team in the NBA, they'll find you wherever you're playing. And then also financially, it's better over here and overseas.
Definitely. So how's it been over there, man? You obviously have dealt with the COVID interruptions. One thing I always like to ask overseas players is just like the difference between whether it's fans or refs or just the overall culture. Did you have like a welcome to overseas moment where it's like, all right, this is different? Just take me through your experience there versus playing in the States.
Oh yeah, for sure. Playing wise, when I first got over here, it's way different. They have different rules. The space is not as much like in the States, so you kind of have to adjust. In the beginning, I had to adjust at first. But I'm a shooter, so it wasn't too much to adjust to. But I would definitely say it's way harder to play here than it is in the States, for sure, because it kind of reminds me of college, where they do a lot of scouting, and there's not much less space. There's no 3 seconds in the paint, so it's really packed in there, and it teaches you to be consistent. So you have to be really consistent. You don't play as much as you want. Everybody play like half a game. So whatever you in there, you have to be consistent and you have to showcase what you can do. And so it was a different basketball for sure in the beginning. But as an overall off the court, It's been nice. The city I was in last year wasn't as good as this city I'm in right now, but I was in France, but Paris was close to me. There's other big cities that were close to me too, so it was excited. I got to go around because it was before COVID, so I got to explore whenever we had time off and all that stuff. But this year since I got here, the pandemic been going on, so we haven't been able to do anything. Pretty much just play basketball and then go home, and that's pretty much it. Because a lot of stuff is going back on lockdown right now. The third wave has hit us in Spain, so everything's going back down to lockdown. But I mean, that's how it is. That's how today's world is. So just gotta go with it.
Yeah, I mean, selfishly, it gives you more time for interviews like this one, so it's not all
Yeah,
bad.
yeah,
But
yeah, exactly.
what city are you in Spain? It's Murcia's.
Murcia,
Murcia?
yeah, yeah.
How would you compare it to like a U.S. city over here? It looked pretty big, like bigger than Des Moines, where I know you're from.
Yeah. I'll compare it to kind of like a Florida or somewhere because it's the weather is beautiful out here, and we have a beach next to the city, so it's something like that, kind of like Florida-ish, uh, somewhere around the ocean and all that stuff. So it's
Man,
nice.
get the ball, get to go to the beach, get paid for it. A lot worse things to be to be doing out there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but we haven't been able to enjoy all the luxury and all this stuff out here yet because of the pandemic, obviously. But hopefully it goes down before the season's over, so we can go out and explore and stuff.
Right, man. I'm hoping like spring, summer, it just kind of slowly gets back to normal with the vaccines and all that going on.
Right.
But being over there, it's Friday night there now. You're 7 hours ahead, I believe. How do you watch the current team in Iowa and the top 5 team that's pretty much commanding the entire country's attention? Are you able to watch all the games? Does your schedule interfere? How does that work?
No, actually, I've watched I think four or five games so far this year because they usually play while I'm sleeping. Usually it'd be 1 o'clock here, and I go to sleep early. So they play, and then I talk to some of the players too next day, and then I also catch the highlights, and that's how I pretty much check in what's going on. But the games that I watched were really good games, so I'm really excited for them, and I'm happy for them as a team.
Yeah, you mentioned talking to some of the current guys. So, you were there, your last year was 2017. So I assume a lot of these current guys, you had Bohannon, obviously, who I think was a freshman. You were still there. That's how long he's been there, which is wild. But I assume a lot of your current guys are, were on visits, you were recruiting them. Do you have any stories about recruiting some of these current guys or remember them coming up and having your eye on them? Who kind of sticks out and who do you talk to currently on the team?
Right now, I talk to Jordan, I talk to Pat McCaffery, I talk to Luca, obviously, but yeah, I mean, when they used to come to unofficial visit, I used to be around all this stuff, and Luca, when Luca first got there, I remember saying he's gonna be special. I knew right away because he was just he stayed in the gym. He's a gym rat, and he would just stay in the gym all day. And he used to always ask me to play one on one. Not a lot of players like playing one on one, so especially at his position, he wanted to work on guarding a guard. So whenever summer in the summer whenever I go back, he always hit me up and say he wants to get in the gym and work and stuff. So I knew he was going to be special. Jordan, obviously, he grew up in Iowa, just like I grew up in Iowa too. So I've watched him since high school, and he's been a great part of the program. Great shooter from three. Like obviously he's one of the one of the great shooters of all time. And then even I'm trying to think who else I'd be talking to. Because I'm close to McCaffery, so I talk to Connor too, and so I just check in every once in a while, and then they also hit me up sometimes. But Joe too, Joe been playing well. He's stepping up, and they're gonna need him to step up the rest of the year for them to be real successful and go far this year. So
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the McCaffreys because it's pretty rare that you get two brothers on the same team. Obviously, you get the added layer of their dad being the coach. But what do you remember about them as they were kind of growing up? You were 4 or 5 years older, and
yeah.
were they hanging around practice a lot? They were in high school. What was kind of their presence as you were going through your career at Iowa?
Oh man, they used to be in the gym all the time. Before practices, I remember Pat always asked me to play one on one. Even Jack, the youngest brother, he always wanted to play one on one. They would come on the road trips. They're just a basketball family, man. And then Connor, obviously, he had baseball too, so he used to come to a practice too, but he was busy with baseball. Just great athletes overall, great family, and I got to be really close with all of them, and it was great, man, because I see them as my little brothers, and I've been really happy, especially with Pat, with redshirting last year. And I remember talking to him last year. I told him, skill wise, you can play with anybody, but just make sure this summer focus on getting your strength up, get stronger, stay in the weight room with Maxwell, and because once you get stronger, you're gonna be a different player. And he really took that to heart, and he been in the weight room. He was in the weight room the whole time, and you can see this year he's not where he wants to be yet, but what I mean, it's a process, and he's gonna be really special down the path. And Conda been playing great, great leader. He's been one of the best, great leaders on the team, and so I mean, it was great. It was great having them around all the growing up too. So and great seeing them grow up to now.
Yeah, and really cool story that I think doesn't really get talked about enough with Pat, with overcoming what he has to get back out there. So I'm glad you pointed that out. Getting to their dad, I want to talk about Fran a little bit, because all of a sudden, you kind of look up and he is now, I think, the third longest tenured coach in the Big Ten behind Painter and Izzo. So he's been there a while, and he's made headlines over the years, with getting the technical fouls or the fiery personality. Like, not gonna lie, like, when I've had to meet him for some of the stuff we do at Big Ten Network, like, I'm intimidated a little bit because he can be short if you don't know him like that. But I want you to tell us, since you're so close with the family, what is it about Fran that that connects with people? Take us behind the scenes and give us a side of Fran that your average Big Ten basketball fan might not see.
Oh man, I get asked this question a lot. But Fred is not what people see on TV. He's not as crazy as people think. Man, he's a family guy. If you see him off the court, you will have a different you would judge him differently, man. Because off the court, he's just a family guy. He loves all his kids, his players. He treats everybody like his sons. Especially, I know he treated me like I was one of his sons. And the one thing that I really liked about Fran is he keeps everything 100 with you. He wants the best for you, but at the end of the day, he's gonna keep everything 100% with you, and he's gonna push you to your limits. And but off the court, he's gonna be chill. He's a family guy. Like I said, he's a loving dad to his kids. If you see him around his kids, you have it. Like I say, it's not the same friend as people see on TV. So I was honored to play for him. It was great 4 years for me, and like I say, I got to be close with his family, so it was a great experience.
It was a great 4 years for you, and I'm looking back to your junior year. I think that was my senior year in college, and I remember you guys got up to, I think, number 3 overall in the country, but ended up trailing off at the end. So, like, that was kind of the other peak of the Fran
Yeah.
McCaffery era. So when you remember your team, and you guys had a lot of weapons as well, and similar in the fact you got guys who could shoot the ball, some talented big men, a lot of versatility on the offensive side. What do you see as far as, like, similarities go between your Iowa team, especially the one that, like I said, got top 5, and then maybe some differences between that team that trailed off at the end and this one who's looking to make a deep run in March?
Yeah, I mean, some similarities that I see with both teams is just the team chemistry, man. If you watch these guys on the court, how they celebrate with each other and how they got each other's back, even with interviews. If you watch how they interview after games and stuff, it's just a chemistry that's really it's the same as we had. We had great chemistry, man, and we didn't care who was scoring and who was not, as long as we got the wins. And we just didn't care about anything else but wins. And then we also care about each other, obviously. But we stayed together no matter what coach said, what the fans said, what anybody else said. We stayed together as a group, and that's one thing I see about this group. They stay together. Obviously, Luca is the leading scorer, but they all have different roles on the team, and they're doing that to their best. And it's great to have Jordan back. He's shooting like he's looking like his old self now. So The team is just keep getting better and better because their potential. I personally don't think they have reached their potential yet. So as long as they stay on the course and just keep playing the way they're playing, when March comes, hopefully the tournament happens this year. They're going to shock a lot of people, and I have them reaching the Final Four. So hopefully they make me and everybody, all the Hawkeyes, look good. But it's an exciting team, man. It's a great team. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you answered my next question already. I was about to say, like, where do you got them ending up in the rest of the season? But it's interesting because we've seen them play Gonzaga. They were a little overmatched, but like they competed. And it's not like I didn't watch that game and think there's no way Iowa can beat this team. I think they can compete. I think Gonzaga was clicking. Jalen Suggs is the truth for them. So that's kind of the measuring stick. And beyond that, I don't see any reason. I agree why Iowa couldn't reach the Final Four. I think they've shored up their defense enough to the point where it's more than enough to supplement that offensive production that we've seen. So I'm excited to see where they go the rest of the way. Excited for that January 29th game against my alma mater, Illinois, because that got a little heated last year. I don't know if you saw that game.
Yeah, I watched that game, man. It was crazy. But man, it's gonna be exciting, man. And then I hope Malcolm is watching too, because I'm gonna talk a lot of crap to him while we're playing.
Malcolm Hill?
Yes, sir. That's my guy. Man. So
dude, he's friends with everybody. I swear. I had Vito Brown on here like a month or two ago, and he's like texting Malcolm right before. He's everybody's friend. I swear he gets along with anybody.
Yeah, he's a great guy, man. He's a great dude.
Yeah, that was my guy at U of I. So that was my neighbor. All right, so I want you to reflect now on your career at Iowa, and just when you think about it and reflect, what are some of the memories you hang on to? I know my coworker on Instagram had asked you for your top plays, but you can go deeper than that. It can be a certain game, a certain moment, an interaction with the fans. What's something that, if someone asked you to tell your best one or two memories from your time with the Hawkeyes that you would automatically kind of latch onto?
Oh man, there was a lot. One of them is when we played Purdue at Purdue. They were killing us first half. It's hard to play in Purdue, obviously. Everybody knows that, especially when you get down by double digits at halftime. And I remember this is when I knew our team was going to be great that year. We got together before the coaches came in, and we told each other, nobody believes we're going to come back. Outside this locker room, nobody believes we're going to come back. All we have to lock in, and we have to play step by step. We're not gonna get the lead back right away, but we got to chip in. And when we came out, we all just so focused, and coming back and beating that team that year, because obviously they were loaded that year too. So it was great. That was one of the best feelings that I had at Iowa. And then another one is another one, I'll probably say my whole senior year, just being the only senior on the team and having to lead a bunch of freshmen and sophomores. It put me in a position where I really had never been before as a leader, and I had to learn throughout the season and had to be a leader off and on the court. And I had Nick Bear help me also to be a leader. He's a great leader. Obviously, everybody know that too. So. I'll say my whole senior year was just a great experience. I'll never forget it. It was a lot of guys a lot of freshmen like Jordan, Tyler, Cordell. All of those guys had to play like they had to play like non-freshmen right off the bat because they had to play a lot of minutes, obviously, because there wasn't a lot of upperclassmen. So I'll probably say that those two.
All right, I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit here, Peter. I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this question, but I want you to rank, if you could. If you can think of 5 off the top of your head, we'll do top 5. If not, we can do like top 3 or something. But I want to get your top 5 shooters for Iowa. It could be from your era. It could be from the current one. It could be any time in Iowa history. You can put yourself on there if you want. Give me your top 5-ish shooters in Hawkeye history.
It got to be in order or just top 5?
It could be in order if you go through it. Like I'm looking at even like the current day, like, you got yourself, you got J-Bo, you got CJ Frederick's great. Luca, you mentioned, has that stroke. So that's 4 off the top of my head, but I don't know if you had some historic guys, because I'm sure you know the history of Iowa a little better than I do. And the sharpshooter.
I'm gonna do it in my era because
Okay.
yeah. So in my era, in the last, I'm gonna say the last decade. I'm gonna do the last decade without me and say just top 5, not in order.
You're not included?
No, I'm not gonna include myself. I'm just gonna say not in order, by the way.
Okay.
I'm gonna say Jordan, Jared Utah, Matt Gatens, CJ Frederick up there, and 5th. Ooh, Josh Oglesby.
That's very humble, of you not to include yourself, because I remember your teams, but the Big Ten tournament game against Illinois, your junior year, you guys ended up losing, but you almost brought them back by yourself. I don't know if you remember that. That was like one of the craziest shooting performances I've ever seen. You went like microwave on them real quick.
Yeah, I mean, if we really ranking it, I'm definitely, I'm in there. But I'm just saying, I'm not gonna put myself in it. I'm just gonna rank for what I see.
That's fine. We'll rock with that.
Yeah.
All right, Peter, before I let you go, just a couple more things. One topic I did want to touch on is, and I didn't want to get too deep into it because like your story has been told before. I actually just got done watching the BTN Journey episode about your journey from the Sudan to the United States and how you ended up in Des Moines and then eventually University of Iowa. And what struck me was kind of the importance of getting a chance, right, to live out your best life, and the importance of kind of welcoming refugees in the United States, and you're kind of the embodiment of that, you and your brother. And you don't even have to like comment on that if you want to, but I do think that's like what this country should be all about. Like, you're in this awesome position now because you guys made the most of that opportunity and were welcomed, and I just think it's a really, really powerful story.
Yeah, man. Obviously, like I said, I'm a big believer of God. I'm a man of faith. So when we came to America, a lot of people help us to get to where we are as a family, especially me and my brother. And but just coming as refugees to America and getting to the level that we're at right now, where we at right now, is all glory to God and all the people that help us through the way to get to where we're at. So it just shows you, man, when you put in the hard work and focus and have the right people around you, you can get anywhere you want and you can reach anywhere you want success wise. And it's a process, So you just got to keep chipping away.
Yeah, man. Props to you and your family for persevering and everything you guys have gone through to get where you're at. And one little hiccup in the road there that I noticed from that story was you did start playing basketball once you got to Iowa as a kid, but you didn't really like it and only stuck with it because, you liked that the team went to McDonald's after the games and you like McDonald's so much that you stuck with it. So like off that, I got to ask, what's your go-to McDonald's order?
Hey, I don't eat McDonald's anymore, but it was number 9. It was number 9 large meal with a milkshake. And then I would have like chicken nuggets on the side and a McChicken. I don't know what number 9 is. I don't know if it's still the same thing, but I used to get that every day. And so, yeah, it's a crazy story, but that's the reason why I started playing. Why I kept playing, actually.
Are you off McDonald's now because of like a health thing? Like you don't want it to interfere with your game?
Yeah. I mean, we're not young anymore. So, the older you get, you got to take care of your body. And that's another thing, man. I would say to the younger generation, trying to learn how to take care of your body right now. And because once you get to the college, even the high school level, high school, college, and then the pro level, obviously, you have to take care of your body. And because if you're not healthy and out there to perform at the highest level, you're not gonna get to where you want to get. And that's something I didn't learn until my sophomore to junior year is learning how to eat better, get enough sleep, drink a lot of water, and and stay in the weight room too, and also training room. And when you're young, you can do anything. You can eat McDonald's for a game and show up to AAU and play, and you'll be good. But as you get older, you got to learn how to take care of your body.
Yeah, those AAU days, you'd be getting. I remember we'd be getting like the sausage biscuit from McDonald's and rolling up to play an 8 a.m. game.
Yeah.
I don't know how we did that.
I don't either.
So all right, last question. What other food are you eating over there then? If you're trying to stay away from fast food, like I remember in Spain when I was there, I had KFC and they had like Five Guys and everything like that. So the options are there if you want it. But what are you sticking with as far as like local cuisine goes, either in France or Spain?
Right now, pretty much I cut out red meat, so I just been eating chicken and fish, like salmon and shrimp, and then chicken. So I cut out red meat, trying to cut out sugar, and yeah. So those the main stuff. Pretty
Some of
much.
that
I don't really eat out as much anymore. So
some of that paella over there. You get some shrimp and chicken in there.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, Peter, you mentioned, you got to get that sleep. You're on a very regimented lifestyle now, so I will let you go, but I appreciate you jumping on, man. Been a lot of fun catching up with you and reflecting on your Iowa days. A lot of exciting games ahead for the current crop of Hawkeyes, so we'll be following that and hopefully continue to follow you in your career overseas. So appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you reaching out, man. It was nice talking to you.
Thanks again to former Hawkeye Peter Jok for taking some time. Really great dude with a cool story. Love talking hoops with him. I kind of mentioned him after the interview. I always love talking hoops with guys that kind of lined up with my college days. Guys who, I watched play from a member of the media when I was in school, and now kind of get to follow their post college journey. And Peter has a really interesting backstory, but also still out there getting buckets and thriving. So thanks to him for taking some time from Spain, and we'll continue to follow him in his basketball pursuits. All right, next interview is Harold Shelton, Big Ten Network Manager of Research. He is on pretty much every episode during football and basketball season to go behind the numbers, break down what's going on. He really can verbalize the happenings in Big Ten football and basketball in a way most can't. Very talented eye for the game, and in this case it's Big Ten hoops that we talk about in depth, kind of catch up, get everyone up to speed since we last talked a couple weeks back. Talk about teams that are playing well right now, your Michigans, your Minnesotas, Iowa, Wisconsin. Talk about some teams that are scuffling a little bit as the grind of the Big Ten schedule picks up. Teams that are on pause as well due to COVID. So we talk about a little bit of everything with Harold, and he does a great job as always. So we'll kick it over to him now. It's Take 10 Podcast discussion with Harold Shelton. All right, I'm very pleased to be rejoined by Harold Shelton back in the new year. Harold, I know Curb Your Enthusiasm did a whole episode about how you can't say Happy New Year like after the first couple weeks or first week or so, but I haven't done a podcast with you since the end of December, so I'm going to break that rule. Happy New Year, man. Hope you're holding up all right, even though it is already like January 20th.
Happy New Year to you as well. My dad said Happy New Year to anybody at any time. So I've kind of had that in my blood. It'll be March and he'll go out and say Happy New Year to somebody. So I do remember that episode, but I think the influence from my dad kind of sticks with me a little more. So I'm more than fine hearing that on January 20th.
I feel like so much has happened. This always happens like when I take a little bit of a break or, we go a while between episodes. It seems like a million things happen between our discussions, and that remains true this time, including in Big Ten basketball. We're in a much different spot right now than we were at the beginning of January. And since then, I think a few things have been confirmed and then a few questions have popped up. First, off the top, I think despite their loss this past weekend to Minnesota, the Michigan Wolverines are a legit threat. They're not playing around. They sent kind of a message when they blew out Wisconsin a week or so ago. So what has jumped out to you about them and why they've been so successful? Because I have a couple ideas just as an observer about what's gone right for them, but I'm curious to hear your perspective on it.
I've been very impressed with their defensive intensity and their energy. Even in that Minnesota game, they were losing pretty big toward the end, but they were still fully engaged. The fact that, they get a bucket, they're down like 15 with, a minute left and they're still chanting defense, on the bench. Like those guys are fully engaged for the full 40 minutes. Juwan Howard's got their full attention. And I just think that, they defend like madmen. I mean, Shondy Brown is a guy that'll get in your grill. We've seen it from Eli Brooks, who they need back desperately. Kind of still, I think he's the guy that makes it all go. And he missed the Minnesota game, so hopefully for Michigan he'll be back. But Franz Wagner is another one who's turned into a really good two-way player. They've got a lot of length, they got a lot of speed, and obviously Hunter Dickinson, when he's rolling, he provides that offensive component. When they're struggling to get a bucket, you can dump it into him and, likely get 2 points or get to the foul line. So they seem to be pretty complete. The only issue for them is probably turnovers. But, that's the issue with a lot of teams. So they seem to overcome that with defense.
Why do you think the defense has improved so dramatically? I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I feel like last year they weren't a great defensive team. I just remember those shootout games with like Iowa and Purdue where a lot of points being put up. And then earlier this season, I think a lot of reasons, or a big reason why people doubted them early, they struggled with Oakland. They're giving up a lot of points early and really tightened it up. So what do you think has changed besides, Howard, I guess, stressing it more and emphasizing it more?
It's interesting because even last year, they were like top 30 defensive efficiency wise. I think they were like 28. They're 10th this year. And so they actually joined Baylor as the only team in the country that's top 10 in offensive and defensive efficiency this year. I think they're more well-rounded this year. I think they have the ability to switch a lot of different things. When you have Livers, when you have Wagner, Brown, big physical guys. And I think part of it too, once Xavier Simpson left, there were a lot of questions about point guard and things of that nature, but I think it's kind of been more of a committee thing. And I know I keep harping on Shondy Brown, but like I feel like he's been a really, really big energy boost, and he kind of rubs off on everybody. And once he gets going, it kind of gets everybody else going. And you could see it when they were trying to come back against Minnesota. He gets a couple stops. They force a 10-second call. The bench is going crazy. You could tell everybody's in it. He picks up his fourth foul. He goes to the bench, and then Minnesota extends the lead back out. So I really think he's been a great addition for them.
Yeah, last thing I'll say about Michigan before we move on. I feel like what's happened with them is kind of like every Optimist fan at the beginning of the season. They look at the schedule, it comes out, they look at people coming back or who's coming into the program. You're like, well, if this goes right, if so-and-so's a good player and is as good as the practice scouting reports say they are, and if this guy can contribute, then, we might be pretty good this year. And I feel like that's exactly what's happened with Michigan. Like all their newcomers have been great pretty much. The guys who have returned, look to have been solid so far. So they're kind of the ultimate like positive fan prognostication come to life.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, the newcomers, I feel like Dickinson has exceeded expectations.
For sure.
I don't think anybody saw him coming in and being, like a first team all league guy. I think people thought he'd be pretty good.
Right.
He
was like a top 50 recruit, but it's not like he was, some of the guys that ended up going elsewhere, like your Josh Christopher, Isaiah Todd, like those were the guys that were supposed to be your one and done looking guys.
Right. And, he's come in and he's been a force. And so now I think that's allowed some of these other guys to kind of stay in the roles that are more comfortable for them. I don't know if Franz Wagner is ready to be the guy on the team. And I don't think Isaiah Livers is the guy on a type of team. And they don't have to be now because he's emerged and he's been able to take so much of the scoring pressure off of those guys and they could just play more team ball.
All right. How about the team that gave him that first L, Minnesota? I am pleasantly surprised by Minnesota. They weren't overwhelmingly impressive early in the season. They had some really tough losses away from home, and it's not like their home wins were, at the time, all that impactful. What is it about Richard Pitino's 8th team now that looks like it's finally clicking? I mean, there's ways to go, but it looks like he's got, that inside-outside game. Carr is really good. Robbins is really good. He's got some pieces around those guys. Why now for Pitino does he seem to have a top 20 team that can potentially stay there the rest of the season if they get some of those road issues figured out?
Seems like they have more depth now, which is something that they haven't really had in the past. Normally it would be a Daniel Oturu with Jordan Murphy, and every once in a while they might have a third guy, but more often than not, it was just two. Even last year, you had Carr, and you had Oturu, but after that, it really wasn't much of anything, and Carr was kind of erratic. But now when you add Robbins, you add Gotch, and Koster's not even shooting well, but he's been a great defender. I mean, he's been a complete eraser on the wing. He guards the other team's best wing and pretty much takes them out of the game. We've seen that time and again all year. But the fact that Carr's elevated his game, he looks like a no-brainer first team All Big Ten guy. Liam Robbins, that Michigan, like both of the Michigan games, I mean, you saw he pretty much got it taken to him the first game and completely turned the tables in that second game. And so I think guys have started to learn, once they got punched in the mouth, what they need to do in order to punch back. And, we've certainly seen that. And, we haven't even mentioned, Johnson and his barrage against Iowa, which was kind of the first eye-opening win for them. They had a under-the-radar win against St. Louis, who's a top 25 team now, but no one really thought it at the time. But you had that win and the Iowa win, and it kind of opened some eyes. And then when they blew Michigan State out, it was like, oh, this team might be really good. And then they cemented that with the blowout over Michigan.
Exactly. I mean, St. Louis can't even, I don't think, get on the floor right now. I think they're dealing with some COVID issues of their own. But the Iowa game was, to me at the time, I was like, oh, that's a nice win for Minnesota, but it was kind of a fluke. Johnson went crazy from three. It was just one of those epic collapses that can happen, but you don't expect the results to repeat. Instead, Minnesota's built on that. And, Iowa and Wisconsin are both teams that have had one kind of head-scratching loss, it seems like. Minnesota is now, I think, way more easily forgiven, especially with how they've played at home. But Maryland, who's proven to be tough and can compete on any night, is the team that knocked off Wisconsin. And Iowa and Wisconsin are two of those kind of preseason contenders that I think, have shown capable of taking a punch and then bouncing back. So do you think both these teams will hang around at the top of the Big Ten? I haven't seen anything to prove otherwise. Teams are going to lose head-scratching games once in a while, but I feel like both these teams have been consistent enough in their style to keep this going, till March and remain contenders for the Big Ten, as opposed to a team like Illinois where they were projected to be, top of the Big Ten contenders, Michigan State as well, and our alma maters have fared much worse. So what do you think about Iowa and Wisconsin?
I'd say for Iowa, and I know we've talked about this ad nauseum, but my concern was, could they defend at a high enough level to make that offense matter so much? And I still don't know if they can defend well enough to win a Big Ten title, but their offense is so elite that it might not matter. Like, I think it gets to a point where you can rely on them to score 80 pretty much every time out. And you got Luka, you can pencil him in for 25 a game minimum. So when you have those two things going for you, as long as you're not a sieve on defense, you're probably going to win. You're going to have more talent than pretty much everybody else in the Big Ten. Maybe Illinois is more talented. Maybe Michigan has more talent. But other than that, they clearly look like the most talented team, certainly top three. And if we really dig deep on Iowa, they're averaging 125 points per 100 possessions. And no, obviously it's the best in the country, but we're talking the only team better than them in the Ken Pom era in the Big Ten was the Kaminsky Wisconsin team in 2015 that went all the way to the title game. So, the super efficient offenses we've seen under John Beilein, some of those, Michigan State teams with Denzel Valentine and Cassius Winston, like the Evan Turner teams, this Iowa offense is better than all of those. So, just keep that in mind when we're watching the Hawkeyes play. They got shooters everywhere. Now they're getting a little bit more depth. Keegan Murray's has really filled a void there, added some toughness. I mean, this is a really, really good team. And right now, and I can't believe I'm saying it because I'm such a defensive guy, but I feel like their offense might be enough to just win the league by itself.
Well, I hope Iowa fans are still listening because we had Peter Jok on this episode. So, I'm sure they'll like to hear that. Another great scorer, great shooter, Peter Jok. Imagine him on this team; it'd be
Right?
even more threatening. All right, so another team I feel like we can't overlook is Ohio State. Just like every year, Holtman plugs in these pieces. He finds guys who can ball, gritty guys, tough guys. I mean, EJ Liddell is an absolute hooper, as we saw this past weekend. And then, it doesn't matter, it seems like, with Ohio State, where the turnover happens with either guys coming and going, guys getting up to speed, like Seth Towns still isn't quite all the way there. Just every year he's had like this top 20-ish team that has 5 guys on the floor that can hoop, and then a couple guys waiting on the bench to come in and contribute as well. Then you get like, these guys coming almost out of nowhere, like Michi Johnson did this past weekend. So Holtman can identify players, he can bring them in, and it's nice to be an Ohio State hoops fan right now because I feel like in general, they got their football team, they know that they're going to be elite every year, and then you can just, if you really are an Ohio State hoops fan, count on them to be a top 25 team every year. I'm envious of that fan base.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the man crush I've had on Chris Holtman ever since he got to Ohio State, and again, he's proven to just to show how great of a coach he is. And it's weird, I felt like they were pretty good, and I want to say it was toward the end of 2020. They were playing Rutgers at home, and they were getting killed. And I remember sending something out to Dave Revson at the time about like, if Rutgers happens to win by a margin like this, it could be like the largest margin they've had against a top 25 team on the road since whenever. And they come all the way back, turn the tables, and wind up winning. And I feel like from there, they've kind of taken off. I know they had the collapse against Northwestern, but they made up for that, beat them back in Columbus. They had the impressive win in Champaign. And, they've got a guy in Dwayne Washington who's one of my personal faves, an irrational confidence guy, as I like to say. Every shot he shoots, he thinks is going in. And I think you need some guys like that. And so when you have EJ Liddell, commanding the paint like he is, you got a Kyle Young who just does all of the dirty work. And, the fact they've been able to win recently without CJ Walker, too. I mean, let's keep that in mind. He's, been battling the injury, missed a couple games. So once he comes back, they could be a legit contender.
Yeah, and that game you mentioned against Rutgers kind of sent both teams in opposite directions. Rutgers was riding high at that point, and they're really struggling now. To be fair, injuries have really affected them. I think guys have just been banged up, starting with Baker like right off the top of the season. So I feel for them, in the sense that they had this great year last year and then poised to have a great year this year. They were in the top 15 or so, and it's kind of fallen off. So what do they have to do to figure it out? Can they get back on track? What's, I guess, Rutgers' easiest fixes at this point to kind of straighten things out?
See, and it's interesting because, in the past, you could always rely on Rutgers defensively to stay in games. It was the offense that was kind of the issue. Then it looked like the offense was rolling in that game in Columbus, and then ever since, they've really, really struggled. They're really bad at the free throw line. They're like bottom 10 in the country at that. Shooting 57%, that's not going to get it done, no matter who you play. And, they've kind of gone back to, how they've been in the past, where the defense, I wouldn't say is as good as it's been, but the offense hasn't been able to bridge the gap like it was earlier in the year. Like when we saw them beat Illinois and they scored 91 points, they scored 81 against Purdue. They got, high 70s against Syracuse. We haven't really seen that after the Iowa loss, when they lost that close one by 2 and they had 75, but since then they haven't reached 70 points. They only had 45 against Michigan State, only 54 and lost to Wisconsin. So they got to shoot the ball better. And when they get to the free throw line, they got to make them count. when you're really struggling on offense, you can't afford to have those empty possessions. And, right now it's just a big problem. And they're turning the ball over way too much, too.
I mean, that sounds like a lot of what Illinois is going through right now. Defensive issues, turnover issues, terrible free throw shooting issues. We talked about from the beginning of the year how this would be an interesting season with your alma mater, Michigan State, and mine, Illinois, potentially competing at the top for a Big Ten title. Right now, that is a distant goal, I feel like, because Michigan State's got some COVID issues to figure out. They're on pause, I believe, because I know the Illinois-Michigan State game was canceled this upcoming Saturday. Let's start with your guys. Beyond, getting past this virus and keeping everyone healthy, what is the biggest hurdle facing the Spartans, and can they do what they've done in the past and really improve and finish the season strong?
That's a good question. It's interesting right now. If you're looking at bracketology, they're an 11 seed, and I think the last time we talked, they were a week after being ranked number 4 in the country. So a lot has changed in a not so long period of time. Turnovers are a huge issue. Point guard play has been spotty. They've started AJ Hogar, kind of moved Rocket back to the 2. But they still turn the ball over way too much. And the Purdue game, when it looked like they were starting to figure some things out, they had the rough start to the season. I think they started 0-3, but they bounced back against Nebraska, had a big win against Rutgers, and it looked like they were going to beat Purdue, kind of start 0-3, win 3 in a row to get back on track. They pretty much scored, I think it was 4 buckets the whole second half. They blow a 17-point lead, don't defend Travion Williams at all. And, you just kind of saw all of their issues come out in that one game, whether it was turnovers, whether it was post defense, 3-point shooting. We kind of saw it all. And then, they've been searching to find a go-to guy. In years past, they've had, your Cassius Winston or Denzel or, on and on and on. This year, you thought it might be Aaron Henry, could be Joey Hauser, but it seems like right now they don't really have an alpha where it's like, all right, jump on my back. I know stuff's not going right, but we'll figure it out. Just follow me. They don't have that guy. And so many of his really good teams have had that guy. And I don't know if that's a fixable issue at this point.
Well, I hope our game gets rescheduled. I was looking forward to that, especially because I think they only have that one this season. So hopefully, a lot of things to work through, obviously, but hopefully they can get that done. Talk Illinois struggles just a second here before moving on, because I do want to talk about Purdue. You mentioned them, that big win, and kind of the way they're trending. This could be a quickly dated conversation if Illinois loses to Penn State Tuesday night. We're recording this Tuesday afternoon, and if they lose to Penn State at home, then I think it's really time to evaluate what's going on here. But this is coming off of 2 tough losses at home for the Illini. It was Maryland last Sunday, and then Ohio State. I guess that would have been 2 Sundays ago. Then Ohio State this past Saturday. I think anyone that watches this team can tell that the extended stretches of either great play or poor play are really costing them with the inconsistency. There will be wild runs. You've seen it with a 19-0 Purdue run, 19-4 Penn State run. Northwestern saw both ends of that spectrum in the first and second halves. So just not being a consistent team is really costing them right now. You mentioned turnovers, or I mentioned turnovers and free throws after you said that was plaguing Rutgers. I feel like that's another one of Illinois' biggest issues. But one thing I want to get your insight on as a stats guy, and I don't know if you've noticed this trend, but I feel like Illinois' 3-point percentage has been lauded by commentators, and they're number 8 in the country right now in 3-point percentage. But I looked a little deeper into it, and they're number 8 in 3-point percentage, which is a huge improvement from last year because they had a really tough time shooting the ball. They're number 293 in the country in attempts relative to the total field goal. So 3-point attempts relative to total attempts. So, in 2021 here, when, your percentage is high, but you're not shooting a high volume of threes, you might be fighting a losing battle, because I noticed this in the Ohio State game. they would dump it down, whether it was to Kofi Coburn or get an easy bucket, with Georgie B. And then Arns or Liddell comes down on the other side and hits a three. So when you're trading twos for threes, and it seems like Illinois does that a lot, I feel like that might be an underlying issue, that they're taking a lot of long twos or dumping it down inside, slowing the game down, and then they're, on these long runs getting burned because the other teams are hitting threes against them. And that goes back to the defensive issues that we've seen as well.
Yeah, and not only that, I think during the 2-game losing streak that you're talking about, the Maryland game, they only shot 15. So I think that's an issue to begin with. And then in the Ohio State game, they were 9 for 26. So if you add it up, you're looking at 14 for 41. That's less, that's about 33%. So that's, a lot lower than what their season average is. And, to your point, the fact that I believe it was, so the point distribution wise, like less than 28% of their points come from the 3-point line. And that just can't happen when you have a lot of empty possessions as they do when you turn the ball over. Like you said, it's 2021. Teams are shooting a bunch of threes, and Illinois doesn't seem to be doing that. And it's interesting because, like, you see Iowa, and, they have a dominant big man, and he still can find a way to score, and they still surround him with a bunch of shooters. And I feel like Illinois probably just needs to shoot more of them because to your point, they're a good shooting team. They're a top 10 in the country in percentage. And for whatever reason, they don't seem to shoot them as much. I'd like to see, them do that a little bit more. So I agree with you completely on that.
Yeah, I mean, it hurts when neither of your big guys can shoot. Like Garza can knock down threes
right
at an insane rate. Coburn and Bishanishvili don't do that. But I will say, I feel like there's more times than I could count where Frazier or Williams or Miller have open looks and they pass it up. Or Iowa's an open look and they pass it up for long twos or for a drive to the bucket that results in a turnover or a missed shot. So, I agree. I think that maybe looking to just pull the trigger on more of those, get more shots up the tempo a little bit could help.
Yeah, and not only that, I feel like last year was a big strength. Illinois was so good in close games, and they had that closer, and Iowa figured it out. He hit a bunch of game winners. But you look at their games this year, they survived against Ohio, but, a 3-point loss to Missouri, a 3-point loss to Rutgers, a 3-point loss to Maryland, a 6-point loss to Ohio State. They get in these situations like they did last year, and they're losing those games instead of winning them. And maybe the close losses reflect in the metrics because despite the fact that they have 5 losses, they're still 10th nationally in KenPom. They're still 7th nationally in offensive efficiency. So I feel like this is still a team that when they put it all together could be really dangerous. It just might not result in a Big Ten regular season title, but the goals, for late March and April, I think could still be available to them if they could figure it out.
Yeah, a long way to go, and building consistency is key, I think, like we said. And one team that's kind of doing that, I want to touch on them before we hop off here, is Purdue. Every year, I say, I feel like I discount Purdue, and I never learn my lesson. We don't know yet if they're a tournament team, but they're certainly trending that way, I think. Freshmen like Newman and Ivy look really good. Matt Painter is just a really great coach who knows how to plug these pieces. He kind of every year can get his team playing better, it seems like, almost in a fashion that Izzo does, except kind of with a different brand of basketball. What are you seeing out of them, and do you think this is a tournament caliber team, and maybe I'm putting that ceiling too low? Do you think they have a even higher ceiling than that once we get rolling here toward February and March?
I think they're good enough to get to the tournament and win a game. I don't know if they're good enough to get past that, but considering, the questions that they had coming in, I still think, relying on a lot of youth, outside of Trevion Williams. So the fact that they're able to do this, considering what they've lost, the last couple of years, goes to show how good of a coach Matt Painter is. And when Trevion Williams stays out of foul trouble, they're really, really good. I mean, we saw it in the Michigan State game. He was pretty much a non-factor for the first half, completely carried them in the second half, got out of there with a win. We saw it the other day against Penn State. He only played 6 minutes in the first half because of foul trouble. He comes back in, and now he's a threat to score in the post. He's a great passer out of the post, so you have to respect that. And just the way that Painter's offense is, there's guys moving all the time. And so when Williams gets going, it allows other people to get going. And, I feel like Purdue, and they're always play really good defense, as we know. That's always a staple of theirs. So I think Purdue right now, I think they're an 8 seed, according to Mike DeCourcy. That feels about right. We're going to find out a lot more about them next 3 games: Ohio State, Michigan, Minnesota, all ranked. So we'll see. If they can get 1 or 2 of those, I think they're feeling really good about the tournament.
All right, H. Well, we'll cut it there. A lot of good discussion, and hopefully, things by the time we talk next, things can stabilize a little bit with the COVID situation. We can get back to a regular schedule, and hope to see some more good basketball, because it was, we have a great league this year, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. So just want to minimize the disruptions, obviously, and we'll continue to talk about it as we roll toward March. Hope you're holding up well, and appreciate you joining as always.
Yeah, no problem, man. And I'm glad you mentioned just the league in general. Might hijack some time here to kind of end it on this note. And so, this week there's only 6 ranked teams only in the AP poll from the league, but it's still the most of any league. And I found it interesting as I was looking back through every week. The most any other conferences had in a week is 6, which is the ACC, was done it twice. And I believe it's been 9 rankings, and we've had at least 6 every week. We've got 10 teams currently in the tournament. No one else has more than 8. 12 KenPom top 50 teams. And, we talked about Minnesota. I mean, their first 8 games in conference were all against ranked teams. That's unheard of. It just shows how deep this league is. And, I think that's part of the struggles that, the Illinois and Michigan States have had is, they get in a rut, and guess what? You got another ranked team coming up, and you got to figure it out. And so I think a lot of times you're just trying to survive and just get 1 win, and hopefully you can push that into 2 and 3. It's just a really, really hard league this year.
Yeah, very well said. Excited to continue watching it, and excited to get to March, and hopefully, we can have a March Madness with no disruptions, and see the conference recognize that full potential this year, because it'd be a shame to see any of that go to waste. So fingers crossed, and looking forward to it. H, talk soon, man.
Sounds good, man. Thanks.
All right. Thanks as always to Harold for joining the show. Thanks again to Peter Jok. Want to give a shout out to our producer, Julie Bronder, who stitches the show together each and every episode. I want to remind everyone out there, if you're tuning in for the first time or coming back, that we are available on the major podcast platforms, your Apple Podcasts, your Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean. And if you want to see these interviews, you can find them on YouTube. We are on YouTube, the Big Ten Network's YouTube channel. There is a Take 10 podcast playlist. All of these interviews are now done on Zoom. So the guests are recorded, and the interview plays out there as well. If you sitting at your computer at work or sitting at home on your phone and want to watch the videos, it's fun, I think, to see the subjects and the reactions to my dumb questions sometimes. So head on over there if you want to do that. Subscribe, leave comments, ratings, reviews, all that good stuff. All right, we'll wrap it up, and hopefully get back to you soon with another episode, another great guest. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe, and we will talk to you next time here on the Take 10 Podcast.